Good evening to all the esteemed panelists here on ABTO, and I would like to, at the outset, thank Dr. Kaulish Kumarji, who has included me in this forum and also given me this opportunity to speak to this August gathering. Bhutan tourism is the second biggest earner next to hydropower. So the COVID-19 has been a big blow for us. Although we are a small economy, small country, small employment, but yet about 4,000 people have been laid off who are directly related to tourism. But of course, we know that COVID-19 has not just affected the travel agents, but also, the transporters, the hoteliers, the guides, so on and so forth. So the government has been working on a policy on how best to tackle this. Of course, working on a policy to revive tourism is one thing, but also like Dr. Leong mentioned, I think getting back the confidence of those who travel, be it the tourists who are coming in or the country who are receiving them, the confidence of both these parties have to be revived. Unless this confidence is revived, I think we will always have a case of this stigmatized tourism entering into any country. So I think for Bhutan, what we are trying to do, or at least the Tourism Council of Bhutan, what they are working on, it is still in the very skeletal stage. It has to be put up to the cabinet, to the royal government of Bhutan, to be approved. But just to share with you on what Bhutan is doing, although at this time of time, we have the low infection rate. We had just 81, out of which we have just about 7 in the isolation ward. The rest are in the de-isolation ward or have recovered. So unofficially, we are getting a lot of requests wanting to know when Bhutan would reopen to tourism. But as I mentioned, the problem is we have to be confident that the people coming in as tourists are free of COVID-19 and that they do not bring in the virus. So as it was mentioned by most of the previous esteemed speakers, I think we have to put in a criteria where we make sure that whoever comes in are COVID-19 free, or that the country that they visit are 19. So we're proposing basically working on 2 proposals. One is like traveling with quarantine, to travel with quarantine facilities. Like for example, we designate we designate the same driver, the same guide, and then they will be moving around with the guest. So, and to very designated areas so that they do not come in contact with the general public. So the tourists themselves are safe, and the public, the general public, the local public are the same. So when we do that, maybe like there are certain restrictions. Just excuse me, my thing has gone off. So okay, sorry about that. So when the tourists come in, there are certain criteria, certain demands that we will be placing on them. First, like anybody coming in will have to bring in COVID-19 negative certificate 72 hours before arrival to Bhutan. Then as soon as they enter from, like if somebody is entering from Bangkok or from Delhi, they'll need to have a rapid test at the check of air entry points. And then as they land in our instance airport at Paro, then they'll have to go for RT-PCR testing. Then a minimum of 3 nights will have to be imposed on them as quarantine. And then we'll also have to find out that the guests who are coming in are not coming or have not visited at-risk countries for at least the last 14 days. And as soon as they're here, they're required to wear a mask, maintain social distance, wash hands, all these SOPs to keep ourselves safe. And then we'd also like the guests coming in to have mandatory insurance cover. And then as they finish their travel in Bhutan, and depending on the requirement of the other country, where they are going to next from Bhutan, maybe they will have another RT-PCR testing 3 days before departure. That would be purely optional and based on the requirement of the other country. But as I was mentioning, travel with quarantine is basically that it's an option given to tourists that, like, one, as an example, they will be required to stay for 3 nights in quarantine. After the completion of this quarantine, he or she can travel in the quarantine mode with the same driver, with the same guide, and only meet identified hotel and identified trekking staff and go to very designated areas. And the other issue is maybe, we give them another option of, travel without quarantine, which means, like, if people opt for trekking, for hiking, then maybe as soon as they come into Bhutan, they stay with this particular guide, trackers, and then go to isolated areas in the mountains where there are no local people, and that they are actually prevented coming into contact with the local people, so that both ways the people are safe. So plan still being refined. I'm happy to share this with you, but we hope that a lot of people depend on tourism. A lot of people, for their livelihood, for their employment, depend on tourism, and I definitely hope that something happens for instance to, maybe a vaccine is found soon, or that COVID-19 is being able to be contained very soon, and that people are able to travel, cross-border travel, and that without fear, or, without fear. So this is a brief presentation from my side. Thank you very much, Shelda.